Hello everyone, my name is Jim Johnstone. I know that there are many deaf elderly who are isolated in nursing homes that have minimal communication, if any at all. I know in Beverly, Massachusetts, they have the New England Home for the Deaf. And we really need to set up that goal to have that same type of facility here in New Hampshire for the deaf elderly.
I had a goal that I would study that kind of field when I was in college, but I had to leave because of medical issues and I wasn't able to reach the goal of college education, but I want to see us establish some kind of a nursing home or a place where elderly deaf people can come together and be cared for.
The idea of having a nursing home for the deaf people in New Hampshire and everything. The one down in Massachusetts, New England Home for the Deaf, is most likely full because they got a large number of baby boomers. So it would be nice if we have one like in the area across the mountain, because that's where most of the kids went to the deaf school there years ago. So that one place would be nice. But the thing is that like Jim Johnstone said, I have seen a lot of older people being totally isolated, totally neglected, because they say, well, we don't understand her, she doesn't understand her, and so on. Well, it's just like thrown in the corner and then left by herself. Nobody understands each other. And like I said to most people, we have what you call hidden handicap. Like if I'm walking down the street and everything, nobody knows that there's something wrong with me. So they tend to think, oh, she's fine, she can't hear, that's it. So just remember, we are not shut off from objects, we are shut off from people.
I'll just quickly another point. It's often the case that service providers think that when you bring in an interpreter that you've solved the problem and that that's access. And as someone who's been interpreting for many, many years, and I think I can speak for most interpreters, that is not access often. So we have a phenomenal community of talented deaf adults that are not working, who could provide effective services to deaf people who are getting ineffective services in the state. Many of us are competent, and there's a limitation to what interpreters can do. So please don't assume that if you throw an interpreter in the room, that means that you've provided competent services to citizens. It's not always the case.
Good evening, my name is Tom Downs. I'm a social worker, and I wanted to comment about some of the issues that Tom spoke about in terms of deaf adults who have language and learning challenges. Currently, Tommy's working for an agency, and the administration of the agency does not know about deaf services and what the deaf needs are, but Tommy does. And the people who are above him in the chain of command and the supervisors don't have that expertise. The people in his agency who are above Tom cannot advocate because they don't understand the unique needs of the customers that and clients that Tom works with. Lutheran Social Services doesn't know how to advocate for the services that these individuals need because of their complex mental health services. And the HHS has that kind of expertise, and they have the resource on staff to make those kinds of decisions to assign appropriate interpreters to clients such as the people that Tom mentioned.
Good evening, my name is Mike Wallace. I did not grow up in New Hampshire. I lived in different states. I worked in different areas, different fields, education, mental health. And I wanted to share with you my past experience. I grew up in Illinois. I moved to DC. I lived in Maryland, New Jersey, New York City, and I was involved in a lot of different jobs in different areas and different agencies. And different agencies who offered a lot of different good services, excellent services to the community. And then I moved to New Hampshire. And I thought that it would be similar to what I had experienced in other states, and realized when I got here that there were not services at all, and it was very unfortunate for the deaf community here that we did not have the services that they needed. I remember when
New Hampshire established a deaf charter school, Loran Clerk Academy, which was so exciting to me. But after 1 or 2 years, the school closed, and we weren't able to sustain the energy that it took. The deaf community wanted to help and wanted to support the establishment of that school, but there wasn't enough support from the state. And it was untenable to keep the school going. It would be wonderful to have more services. It would be, we need the state and people in positions of authority to pay attention to the ideas so that we can work together as partners with you and provide the services that we see the state of New Hampshire needing so desperately.
And I'm actually going to interpret for Connie.
Oh, I was reminded by Connie that there was one other issue that I did not address, early intervention programs. And I want to talk about that just a bit. Is that okay? Is there somebody else who was going to address the early intervention issue? Well, seeing no one, I will. In New Hampshire, well, let me speak about what other states offer for early intervention programs. When a newborn is tested and found out that the person has a hearing loss, we see many states offering to new parents who have a newly diagnosed deaf child a spectrum of services. ASL, speech training, cochlear implants, a gamut. But in New Hampshire, that doesn't happen. We do not have that kind of resource. In New Hampshire, we don't have that kind of early intervention service and screening for babies so that newborns who are identified can be directed to services and parents can be apprised of options. I think the best person to comment about that is probably Dee Clanton. Dee, could you speak to that? Thank you, Tommy, and thank you for bringing up the topic of early intervention and screening. I'm actually on the board that was established, I think, around 2003 that deals with early identification. And I have some concerns. Oh, I'm sorry, let me introduce myself. I'm Dee Clanton. I'm the State Coordinator of Services for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services in the Department of Education Division of Voc Rehab. We do have statistics in New Hampshire on the number of newborns who are identified with hearing loss. And I see struggles for those parents and for that process. I think there are about 13,000 babies born who initially don't pass the test, but then as the testing process becomes more sophisticated, about 70 babies are identified annually. And so that would give us, say, 700 babies born in the last 10 years who have been identified. But again, any numbers of those children or other children could have hearing loss that develops when they're 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 years old. So the numbers should be greater than that. I think that the information that's provided to parents is often very confusing. Parents get the information that ASL is not English, which is very scary to parents, rather than getting the information that ASL is a visual language. There is a program in New Hampshire, MICE, which is an early intervention program for children and families who have identified with hearing loss. And I think they do great work, it's very important, but not many of those families actually get a referral there. There's also funding in the state through Parent Information Center, PIC, and a very, very small amount of that money is granted to NDHHS, the Deaf Service Center that we've been talking about this evening, to provide sign language classes for those parents of those babies. But it's a very insufficient amount of money. On a national level, this is a very hot topic, and I think we need to pay more attention to it here in New Hampshire so that parents with newly identified children have more options and that there are more services for them. My name is Reed Cotton, and I promise I'll stay under the 3-minute time limit. And I want to clarify something, that's all. Earlier in the evening, someone made the comment that English and ASL are the same language. They are not. So I just want to clarify that there are two separate languages we're talking about. And my second point is, people in New Hampshire are allowed to choose whatever they want to do. I have a Ford, I love my Ford. Okay, we got a few Chevy drivers here, we got a few, okay? People in New Hampshire can choose. Deaf people should be able to pick what agency they want to get services. And people have the right to like or dislike the agencies that provide services. I think there are 3 service language providers. Real Gilbert is here from an agency called Words, and he's been in existence providing language services longer than I've been alive, I think. Am I right, Real? Real Gilbert is here.
1976.
1976, he started providing language services. Okay, so that's one agency. So I want to say that there are 3 referral agencies in the state of New Hampshire. And some are great, and some might need work, and I totally agree on that. So, you know, whatever. My car works great, yours doesn't work so great. I mean, everybody does what they do. And I think people have a right to a choice. You know, there may be one that many deaf people love NDHHS, but not every deaf person will want to work with NDHHS. So we should have an option. And I don't think that the choices should be limited so that people have no choice. Thank you. That's all I need to say. My name is Reed Cotton, and I promise I'll stay under the 3-minute time limit. And I want to clarify something, that's all. Earlier in the evening, someone made the comment that English and ASL are the same language. They are not. So I just want to clarify that there are 2 separate languages we're talking about. And my second point is, people in New Hampshire are allowed to choose whatever they want to do. I have a Ford, I love my Ford. Okay, we got a few Chevy drivers here, we got a few, okay? People in New Hampshire can choose. Deaf people should be able to pick what agency they want to get services. And people have the right to like or dislike the agencies that provide services. I think there are 3 service language providers. Real Gilbert is here from an agency called Words, and he's been in existence providing language services longer than I've been alive, I think. Am I right, Real? Real Gilbert is here.
1976.
1976, he started providing language services. Okay, so that's one agency. So I want to say that there are 3 referral agencies in the state of New Hampshire. And some are great, and some might need work, and I totally agree on that. So, you know, whatever. My car works great, yours doesn't work so great. I mean, everybody does what they do. And I think people have a right to a choice. You know, there may be one that many deaf people love NDHHS, but not every deaf person will want to work with NDHHS. So we should have an option. And I don't think that the choices should be limited so that people have no choice. Thank you. That's all I need to say.